as a quick check, Julie, you can see my screen and hear me, ma'am?
Yes, I can see your screen, and I can hear you well as well.
Okay. Well, as Julie said, I've been at this for a while, and my name is Ira Whiteside. Actuality Business Intelligence is our little company. My wife's the president. My daughter's involved, so we try to be the Partridge family of BI. We're going to explore today some components and concepts of data lineage. And then really, of late, I've been doing a good bit of work for clients in Power BI. So we're going to take a walk through Power BI from the perspective of carrying data through, basically getting data left to right. It isn't intended to be an extensive Power BI overview, but more of a functional, a relatively quick walkthrough to show you what you can do with the new capabilities, which in my opinion I think are going to be quite a paradigm shift in our world. Victoria Stasiewicz, sorry, will be adding some commentary along the way. So with that, we'll jump right into it. To kind of get a little bit more detail, we're going to look at some data profiling in SSIS. We're going to go through some visualization of that profiling. Outside of this will not be involving the SSIS profiling control flows. These are components written by myself, which will be available to you at no cost and documented extensively in various articles. We'll talk about that in a minute. Data lineage, again, exploring the concepts of in today's analytical world, what you need to do in terms of making your data not only dimensionalized, but available for answering complex questions and drill downs. We're going to walk through Power BI. We'll bring some data in live, import it, publish it to the web, and make it available. Next, we'll actually take some time to take a look at working and shaping that data in Power BI. And lastly, we'll accomplish that publishing a couple of times through there just to give you a real feel for what can get done. Well, first off, the slide you're looking at is a basic slide to kind of explain the concept of data lineage. And I don't pretend that it's rocket science, but I do think it's critical and often overlooked. Many times as we begin to build applications in our environment today, we're focused on getting a dimensional model up, getting the source to target mapping, maybe doing some profiling to clean it, and then defining metrics and building fact tables and getting answers out. And often one of our first problems is when a client is attempting to when the client is attempting to answer a question, oftentimes they're faced with kind of a brick wall. So if we look at our little lineage slide here, what we've got is, on the left-hand side, you can see we've got phone numbers with multiple formats. So we've got a column with a problem. On the right-hand side here, phone 1 cleansed, you can see that we've reformatted that column. In this case, we're going to show you in a little bit, we've done it with a rule, a metadata rule that we've stored, very simple, and applied that rule and even given ourselves a little valid or invalid switch. So the idea here is if you look at the larger arrows is we got our dirty column. We know what our clean column is. We know what the rule was that was applied. Over here on the right, we even know the column name that was originally used. We're actually storing that as an attribute in the pipeline. That becomes critical too, because what we're really trying to do is say when we're done, our data has flown through the pipeline and loaded into a table, dimensional OLAP analysis services, you pick it. We're going to be able to allow the client to fully understand what happened to that data along the way. When you look at that pipeline profiling, this is a little example of a data flow, which is a combination of some Microsoft stock components to get data. And all I did here was I wanted to emphasize that we would be taking data, profiling it in the pipeline, looking at it, cleaning it, perhaps with a list of data's contact, applying some validation or business rules, doing some matching, and then coming out with an output that actually let us fully understand where the data came from. So if we take a look at some of this in action, The first thing I'd like to do actually is we're going to get into SSIS, and we're going to look at some of the components and how they work, and if they fit anybody who's interested in them. I'll show you a page in a minute. I have a good bit of time here. Let me just bring this up. Everything we're doing, I've got components that are available, so obviously they're here, and if you'd like them, just send me an email. But everything that we're talking about is fully documented on SQL Server Central.com. I've got a dozen articles. In particular, I've got some older articles here on data profiling and SSIS using Visual Basic. I've got some articles on C# and accomplishing the same thing. So a lot of this is available, and as I said, anybody who's interested, please just send me an email and let me know. But to get back to the business end of the data lineage analysis, let's just take a look first at some profiling results. So what we're looking at is more of a business level definition in that if we've got a problem and we're taking in a data set and we want to understand what's going on, what we'd really like to do is probably create two simple worksheets. The first worksheet you're looking at here is called column stats. And so let's just take a second. We'll go into zip code here. And what we want to know is on a single column, we want to kind of understand the contextual content that we've got. In this case, for the column bill zip, we have a minimum length of 0. So we have a zip code that's not there at all. A maximum value, a maximum value of 99755. That may or may not be a valid zip. We've got a maximum length of 5. We know the number of blanks. We know the number of the blank count ratio. We know the number of nulls. And over here, we even know the number of distinct domains. And while we're looking at this in a spreadsheet, it's important to keep in mind that if we're able to do this in an SSIS in the pipeline, we can also put it in a repository. So we can have time series, version, profiling data. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Another example here would be the state codes. We could tell, for instance, again, our max value is W. We know we've got one state code. We've got one line state code. It's interesting here that we can take a look at and understand our data. So that's the first spreadsheet you'd like to be able to work with, either yourself or percent users. The second one is when we decide here that we've got a problem in a particular column. In the profiling world, there's a concept of domain analysis. And what we're looking at here, a simple little spreadsheet created from the output of the components we're going to look at, is our ability to analyze a domain. In particular, we talked about our phone number column, so we're going to look at phone number. And what we're looking at here is a little hierarchy that tells us the patterns that exist in the phone number column. You can see we've got a diverse set of patterns. And the ability that we can drill into those patterns and say, well, what values have we got out here? What is the problem? There's a lot that you can talk about here, but primarily if you're going to either hand code a business rule to fix it or try to generate code to fix it, you're going to need to understand the patterns and the anomalies. And without getting extensive into the combination of this and MDS or valid domain values, this simple little spreadsheet is going to tell you what's going on in a column. If we wanted to say maybe switch from phone to zip, we can see that we've also got some issues with our zip codes. We've got some zip codes that the 5-character ones are fine, the 6-character ones are an issue, and the 3 characters. So again, I wanted to start a little bit with the end in mind here, and that what we want to do is be able to analyze this data and look at it. And the beginning of getting the full concept of data lineage implemented is profiling, metadata-driven capabilities, and then being able to cleanse data, and certainly with SSIS in the pipeline, be able to bring those dirty and cleansed attributes along. So if we take a look now into a little bit of a working environment, the first one we're going to look at is those data profiling capabilities. How do we get those? We've got a couple of components, and as I keep saying, have no problem. Send me an email. I'll send them right over to you. And as we look at these here, we've got components that do column stat, data lineage, domain. We've got a particular pattern component. The idea that's important here is that those components are pipeline components. They are not control flow components. So we can drop these profiling components into our SSIS pipeline, and anything that we can source, we can profile, and anything that we can target, we can create a repository in. The components themselves are very straightforward. If we take a look at here, you see I've dropped in a source, and hopefully we'll open up. Got a little data set here in preview, customers. So we've got customer IDs. Here's all of our offending phone numbers, names and addresses and the like. If we were to drop each one of our little profiling components in here, I use the multicast, as you can see, because I want to take advantage of the pipeline and profile this data once. We simply drop in the component, select the columns we'd like to profile, and that's it. The output here, I'm going to show you in a data viewer, but the output, if you choose the version and timestamp your profiling results, obviously you can target those to any source that you'd like. If we execute our package, you can see that what we've done is, first let me back up here a minute. Here's our column profiling output. Again, with our column name, the minimum values, the maximum length, the maximum values, these are important. The idea that right here, just knowing minimum and maximum value in many cases is going to give us enough to tell us if we've got offending domain rules or offending reference table rules. And then the other statistics, as you can see. In addition, we've got a table being created here with our domain statistics. And again, this is a count of the unique values and their patterns. Again, critical in terms of your analytical ability. I'm not going to dive into. I have analysis services cubes designed to sit on top of this, which I can also send you the load solutions for. So that gives us kind of an ability to profile data and quickly get an understanding of what's going on and what's out there. The next thing you'd like to do, keeping our phone numbers in mind, is you'd like to fix them. And in this case, we have applied some capabilities to SSIS to where the rules that we're going to use regular expressions. And forgive me for a minute if we just take a look over here in SQL Management Studio. I'm really trying to force myself not to click too much because I hate it when other people do it. We've got a little table here with some rules. These are regular expressions. So we've got a little table. We've got some rules down here called format phone. We've got a rule, and again, if anybody wants more information on regular expressions or anything else, just please drop me an email. I can gladly send you some links and give you some help in getting started. But nevertheless, we've got a basic rule here that says, hey, does this column have numbers only in it, yes or no? And another rule that says, okay, hey, I want to format this. I'd actually like to format this column and split up my prefix and suffix. Well, if we take a look at the component, the process is, again, very straightforward. Given that we're accessing that table, we simply come in here and select the columns we're going to try to clean, in this case, phone. Set a little property here where we point to our table. The idea here is those rules are stored in this table. And obviously what we're trying to get to is if we want to be able to clean data, we want a common set of rules that all packages or departments can access. And if they are changed, you're able to affect the package and the cleansing without recompiling or deploying the package. And then lastly, a little GUI here where you can see we can drag and drop our little rules. In this case, we're going to format the phone and parse it only. Well, if we take a look at what all that does, here is what we get. So here, we looked at our little example earlier. You can see that we've got various phone formats. We've now got properly formatted phone numbers. And I know this is a simplistic example. Obviously, we can get quite more complex. But what we're trying to do here is say, in this pipeline, I'm actually telling you the rule I used, the category of the rule itself, whether or not it passed, and you can see the rule names here, numbers only in phone parse, and so whether or not we got a valid instance. The second rule that we used over here is worth noting, is we took first names and we remove special characters from those first names. We've also got an email validation rule. Now again, when we write this data set out and when we create the input for our dimension, we're going to be bringing along those additional attributes and then building hierarchies in SSAS or making information available on reports that will allow a user to understand if they're asking a question at an aggregate level, what happened. And that really kind of covers a lot of what I wanted to cover in terms of data lineage and profiling. The second part of our exercise here, if we kind of go back to our hastily put together agenda, is to really talk about really dramatically paradigm shifting capabilities, I think, for us in terms of Power Pivot. I'd like to take you through a little bit of a walkthrough. I was lucky enough to become a beta user and have got the Power BI preview, and now that they've brought it all together, and I know that we can talk about it. I know there are some things that were here before, like Data Explorer, which has become Power Query, and a few other things. It's all well documented on the web. The fact that they've brought them together now, and the power they allow you between Excel and Office 365 with SharePoint is quite impressive. I'm already getting clients that are looking for hosted solutions, software as a service solutions, where they're choosing not to even have SQL Server installed on their client site. And I think that as we go into next year, it's going to become more and more prevalent. Well, if we take a look, first let's go take a look at the Office 365 site. And what we're looking at here is, so here's our Office 365 Admin Center. I'm not too, there's Lineage has got several videos out on how to set up and manage Office 365. We're not going to try to go through that. What we're going to focus on is the fact that if you get your Office BI set up and your SharePoint and your Power BI, and I'll leave you to get some more documentation on that, and if anybody needs help, we're going to focus here on this area where I want to be able to get data from an external data source. I want to be able to get it from a remote server. I may be able to, I'm going to want to take data that's on my corporate server and make it available. So what I'm going to do is create a gateway. And again, we're not going to dive into how to do each one of these things. We're going to look more at the user tools in Excel in a minute. I just wanted to give you some background. We're going to create a data source. We're going to assign some security if we need to. And really then we're done. So what I'd like to do is we're going to start from scratch. We're going to take some data from a remote data source, and the first thing I'm going to do is show you where we're going to get that data. If you check the MSDN blog, they've created a public OData source. OData source meaning we can define the appropriate .NET connector and be able to source that data, obviously. And they've actually exposed AdventureWorks. So this is publicly available. I'll send this slide out again in the presentation, anybody with the links in it. So it's a great way for you to get demos up and learn and understand without exposing any of your own corporate data in the beginning. In this case, we're going to be able to access a couple of tables: company sales, documents, manufacturing, product catalogs, territory, and work order. So feeling rather brave, I'm going to start from scratch here. So we've got an Excel workbook. First thing, as always, is sorry, go back here. Is we look in the workbook. We're going to take a few minutes inside of here now. In addition to the fact that we've got our normal Excel capabilities and our normal Excel tabs, we've got Power Query, which is where we're going to spend most of our time. We've got MDS, which is also critical. We're not going to cover it in this video, but very, very critical now that we can source and create MDS models and capabilities pretty much any way we want, and that we can do our sourcing right in the same Excel workbook. And then lastly, we've got Power Pivot. Well, if we take a look at Power Query, what we're going to want to do is we're going to in this case we want to go and get the product catalog data and be able to move it from the site that it's at, consume it, create a little Excel spreadsheet, and post it to our SharePoint site through Power BI. We're not going to be incredibly visual here. We're just going to kind of concentrate on the steps to get the data in. So we'll pick up here our O data feed, and we're going to drop in the, well, we're not going to drop that in. 1 second. We're going to go pick up the O data feed. Sorry. Here we go. And the O data feed is obviously a URL. Click on that. And it's going to pop up and open up a Power Query window. First thing we'll do, just for some little housekeeping here, is give this query a name, product catalog, and we'll go ahead and bring in the product catalog. Well, as we kind of work through Power Query, and again, I would say I'm not going to extensively go. First, we can do some what they're going to call filtering and shaping. We can remove a couple of columns, some of the binary and photo fields that are not going to be necessary. We can do some additional work in terms of selecting or creating filters, all very familiar stuff, nothing that we have to focus on too much here. And so we filtered it. We created a small data set. We can then actually say, okay, we're done with that. What Power Query will do behind the scenes is it'll begin to load and try to get an understanding of that data. And as you can see over here on the right, one thing that's important is what you can't see well down here is something called Load to Data Model. As Power Query finishes processing, that's going to become active, and we're going to click that. And that's critical because loading to the data model is what's going to allow us to publish this on our Power BI and SharePoint site and be able to then continue to deploy it and have other folks get at it and access it with the appropriate credentials. So in this case, we've now gone through the process and been able to actually create and save our query. I'm not going to try to do anything else with it right now, other than what we're going to do is actually save it to the SharePoint site. So we're going to open that Sundial ABI site up, and take a look here at exactly the right folder here. Oop, 1 second. Give ourselves a name. And of course, we have to pick the right folder to save. As usual, is my problem here. And if we go over to our site and open up our Power BI site itself, 1 second. Just need to get to that. Waiting on a little bit of a refresh here. 1 second. Okay. We come down here. Let me back up. This is our Power BI admin site where we are able to look at and share documents, create content, and the like. As you can see, not a lot here, kind of bare bones. We're going to look at our publicly shared available sites. We're actually in Power BI at this point, and let's just take a look. And we'll open up our saved spreadsheet. In this case, product test. Actually, just because I do believe everybody's watching, let me open exactly the right spreadsheet, which is this guy. And these are the products. Now, while on the one hand it might not seem incredibly impressive, I've been at this a long time, and I find it absolutely incredible that I can define a source to a remote server relatively non-technically. We'll go take a look at creating that data source in a minute. And take that data in, manipulate it, clean it. I obviously could have created an extensive Power Pivot. If we go back into our spreadsheet, we could continue on in terms of the work that we're doing here. One second. I really apologize. I keep opening the wrong spreadsheets. We simply did Power Query. We could certainly then import our data into, manage our data through Power Pivot and create any extensive array of reporting capabilities that we chose. Power Pivot, again, a simple set here, not a lot to look at, but once in here we can also begin to manipulate our model. Diagram view here is just going to show us one table. Again, a lot of this, to me, in terms of the introduction of the new technology, is just getting the high-level concepts of what I've actually got to do to get data left to right. Simply being able to bring it along left to right becomes a critical issue. And we can take a minute here. I'd just like to see if it's okay, Julie, and break protocol a little. If anybody had any questions, we can go back in and take a deeper look at setting up some connections and a little bit of a closer look at some of the profiling. But that's kind of the initial flow in terms of the capabilities. And you know I should have checked with you, Julie, because I haven't done this since we've switched to GoToMeeting, so the question and answer process may be a little different, and I apologize for that.
Oh, no, that's okay. So we haven't got any questions so far.
Okay.
Just a couple of notes on the volume, but I think we're doing a lot better as the time progresses, so that's why I haven't commented on the volume. I think it's okay. So.
Okay. No problem. Okay, so what we've done is we've kind of taken two related areas in walking through our profiling capability and then moving on into the deployment for Power BI. What I'd like to do, since we're on Power BI right now, is go back and just take a little bit of a slower walk through the process that we have here. For one, once we've been able to manage and get our data model created in Power Pivot, if we choose to add an additional table, that is a relatively straightforward process too. I find it most easy to actually use the capabilities here. And again, in this case, using the data modeling capabilities within Power Pivot at least allow you the graphic view and the diagram view of the data. We can do the same things over here in Power Query, but it's a little bit more retro in terms of Excel capabilities. If we would want to merge tables, we would certainly bring in another data source and another table and be able to merge them. So what I'd like to do is we're going to go ahead and do that. If we hit our old data source again, and we want to bring in a table that we could relate, in this case, to the product catalog. We'll look at a couple of tables here, and I think product category would relate here because we've got product categories in both tables. In order to accomplish a merge, and again, working through this with Power Query, we simply select each query that we need. In this case, Query 1 in Product Catalog. And the mapping is really a very straightforward process of simply clicking on the fields that you feel you need to lap. We can automatically include some duplicates and bring those along. It'll take a few seconds here. It's created a new data set, Merge 1, which we can save. We want to let that process. And then also load that to our data model. And again, if we republish, we've now got that information available and dispersible. So from that perspective, again, the ability to be able to pull the data, work with it, I think is going to have a dramatic impact on most mid-sized companies, and certainly I think have a great impact in departmental issues in terms of clients, especially larger clients looking to kind of reinvigorate their BI capabilities. What I'd like to finish with is actually to go back and take a little bit of another walkthrough in terms of the profiling capabilities, and certainly encourage anybody who's interested. I have a several presentations and work I've done in terms of espousing a methodology referred to as a metadata mart. And the components that you have here and the capabilities, I believe, are critical in that. The idea that we can actually accomplish the profiling here, and we're going to just run this one more time, but the idea that we can take any source, and again, as we kind of walk through this in summary, taking a look at not knowing what is in our data, what have we got, what are the problems, what are the issues, but we can accomplish some of that profiling before we've even begun the mapping. In many cases, early on in the project, as you can see here, I'd go back to even simple outputs like this, and let me open up the right spreadsheet. Sorry. Simple outputs like this that are giving us our high-level contextual view, in some cases of hundreds of tables, where we can very quickly determine what we've got. If we look at things like simply here on state code, the idea that we know the minimum value was blank and the maximum value was WA, that automatically tells us we've got an issue to deal with. As we get deeper into things like zip codes or SSNs, knowing what's going on and understanding is critical. Being able to then take that, move that back, and have an ability here. I'm using a simple pivot table here. We could just as easily put a solution up with a SSAS. But being able to analyze and drill into each of these columns and understand what's going on really, I believe, becomes critical. And I think is an important missing functionality from the Microsoft stack. The reason I put both of these together, even though they're a little disjointed here, and I apologize for that, is that while I've put a lot of time in building out the componentry and making it available to folks for data profiling in SSIS, I think it's going to be even more critical in Power BI. Having the ability to profile the data, access it, and understand it will become even more critical, and in many cases, not using SSIS, just using those native Excel capabilities. And I think that that's pretty much it. I think I've actually come up a little short here, Julie, and I apologize for that.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
Hopefully, I didn't jump around there too much.
Oh, no, that's fine. Maybe we can just open the floor for questions. If anyone in the audience would like to ask any questions, feel free to raise your hands or I'll unmute you.
Yeah, and actually I can check now too. Victoria, are you out there and can we hear you?
Let me promote Victoria as a panelist. So,
sorry.
Victoria, are you there? Let me see if I could unmute Victoria.
I'm here.
Hi, how are you, Victoria?
Good, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sure can, and let me obviously, first off, let me say that half an hour before we started, my Windows machine updated, and that caused me some concern, which Victoria has helped me with. But Victoria actually applied principles as a senior business analyst, and I don't think we have any slides ready to go here, Julie, but you might want to take a minute and talk about the concept that using in several healthcare companies right now in applying data lineage to requirements methodology.
Mm-hmm. Yes, actually, so I've taken some time about these last 2 years working as a consultant for various healthcare clients across the country here in the U.S. And with that, as a BA, obviously, I've come in as a technical BA where I'm also doing the upfront requirements gathering for user interface and how users are interacting with those interfaces. Also, then taking those requirements back to also working with the technical teams and actually building out the requirements as far as what's coming out of the database for the source to target mapping that we're doing. And the client that I'm working with right now, you know, obviously leaving names aside, has a database that's quite large, quite convoluted. It is in a a SQL management database that they use, their Microsoft Shop. But with that comes a lot of the older methodologies they use to format fields, where you'll find a lot of fields that have a lot of concatenated values that really just should not be living within one field. And a lot of what probably most companies are seeing and clients within the healthcare realm are seeing right now is the need for the CCD. I know with the healthcare exchange happening within the U.S. right now, a lot of that has come with the idea of using XML to pass data in the form of an EMR. And so what a lot of healthcare organizations are doing right now is trying to work together to format what you would call like a CCD record to then be able to exchange data within a defined format that would be used across the board, used across all organizations. So that now when it comes to passing data that is pertinent to a member's healthcare record or history, it can be done within one defined format through all organizations, no matter what type of obviously applications you use, what your foundation is for your tools, that no matter what, it can be passed within that CCD format. And obviously with that, when you dig into these databases, you will find things that Ira is pointing out, the profiling that's needed, the data cleansing and quality that's needed. The Lineage component has proven to be quite useful, but that these types of tools have definitely helped speed up those processes and actually taking a client's data and being able to pass it along as clean, useful data, not dirty data, something that obviously will be proven to be useful to a provider, to a physician who's actually accessing the data, or a nurse attempting to contact members, as that baby boomer generation is now definitely setting into the, as I might say, the older years. They're going to be taken care of very soon, so we're going to need all the healthcare history on them possible.
Yeah, but, there's a litany of old man jokes, which. But
yes.
The issue is, and Victoria certainly addressed is addressing the methodology in that it relies on profiling. The idea is that even in the early stages of any project, whether it's a large-scale project or you're creating a bid or you're just doing your own work, your ability to quickly get an understanding of what you face is critical in really getting a proper estimate. And there's a fine line between a misdeliverable and a mismanaged expectation. And I would say in anything in terms of the profiling, that becomes the critical aspect, the ability to get an idea and a real grasp on what you're facing in terms of cleansing and how they relate to data rules.
And by using the profiling components, it does help define requirements up front as well. So obviously when you're digging into the database, you can see where there's certain fields that have errors or issues. A lot of times you will find that on the front end within the user interface, those are free text fields. It'll actually help you define what your interface should look like as well. So when we've gone through and we've taken requirements and built them out using the database, what's living inside the database, and then changing the look of the interface so that as any users entering things, you're getting clean data across the board, what the look of your interface is and what's actually being passed into your database.
So again, if anybody has questions, please feel free to fire away.
Yep, we do have a question here from Eric Plant. So the question here is there a way to provide public access to SharePoint sites on Office 365, possibly using authentication other than Active Directory?
There are, yes, I believe there is. There's basic authentication, so I believe you have the full capabilities. In the end, remember, setting up the OData capabilities is going to be going through the normal connection setup processes. And obviously there are inherent dangers and problems in that, but the good news is I don't believe there will be any restrictions. And I can bring that up and double check myself, but I'm pretty sure of that.
Okay. I do have another question here. So with the with your experience with the data profiling and getting data ready for organizations, have you worked with multiple countries or multiple locales, I suppose, where the phone number format might be slightly different, and how do you come about, or how do you go about attacking that kind of issues where the rules might be different from one data set to another depending on the countries?
Yes, I have, and it's more than we can go into here. However, there are some techniques you can apply. When we looked at our spreadsheet, and I can kind of show you here, one of the things that we can do is we can associate our profiling results against existing reference tables or domain tables that you have. That means that we could actually create dashboards that tell us whether or not your data is meeting those values or expectations. I don't have all of that done at the components that I have, but I have got techniques where we can say, okay, based on the column type, I'm expecting a certain level of information, right? Or I'm expecting a certain format or a certain domain. And I can show you an example of that in 1 second. Some of the healthcare companies we're at where we, 1 second here. Here we go. Where I was getting is it's relatively straightforward to build dashboards and apply some rules based on what you need. Of course, now that I want it, I can't actually find the Excel spreadsheet that I want. But the answer is yes, it takes a little bit of time. I've got a couple of articles that bring you halfway. If you really want some information, really don't hesitate to send me an email, and I can give you some advice on exactly what you need to do. No problem. Any other questions?
Let me just see. So we've just got a couple of questions about the session recording. Just to let people know that if you visit bi.sqlpass.org, there's a presentation archive on the tab. We'll be posting this this session on that page. Let's see if we have any other questions here. So what are your thoughts in terms of, how you have the, how we have Power BI now where people can start sharing information. Now, obviously you've worked with data for quite some time now, as well as you, Victoria. Now, what do you think about this movement of having Power BI and being able to share data online somewhat reasonably easily now? What do you think about the quality and how would it play with data governance? What are your thoughts on that?
Actually, I think it's going to have a dramatic impact, Julie. I mean, I'm already getting healthcare clients who are interested in having their complete solutions hosted. When you look at the processes, and especially for mid-sized companies or departmental solutions, Power BI pretty much brings Microsoft to the point of being able to compete, I believe, with solutions like ClickView or Halo. When you think about it, without having extensive niche skills in other technologies, you're now able to come into Excel, and if you at least know some SQL, and you don't really need to know a lot of that, other than the tech work on getting you set up and the right credentials to get your data feed set up, your ability to bring people to bear in a project and bring actually strong business analysts and data analysts to bear, their ability to build out solutions, I think is critical. I didn't show you here, but in addition to Power BI, keep in mind that inside of here, master data services is fully enabled. And that's also critical. That kind of exposes master data services here. We'll connect to the standard model. That exposes master data services and your ability to manage and conform data and use its capabilities also within Excel. And you have the full ability to manage those reference data sets and build the rules, as we were the question earlier, meaning that if we wanted to have different domain values and different format types, we can actually store that in here. As you can see here, we can actually pick a model. And if we want to take a look at anything, I think we put our product categories. I put these out here earlier. They'll actually show up. So the end result is many companies now can bring solutions to bear that are totally hosted solutions. With the combination of Power BI and SQL Azure, you can, I think, provide many companies complete BI and analytical needs. And even if you're doing that in a sub-organization or departmental level, it will have a dramatic impact. While there's still a great need, and certainly, you know, thousands of implementations of SQL Server and SSIS, from a pure business perspective, they just want the analytics. And I think the idea that you can get it done now and not have to deal with the infrastructure and not even have to deal with the level of skills required for a consultant, I believe is going to be huge. And actually, that was really my objective today. It was kind of a rough demo, but I just really wanted to convey the concept that you can take this data, consume it, change it, and we didn't anywhere near go into any depth in types of the transformations and cleansing that can be accomplished here, but it's relatively detailed and robust. So in addition, when you take the fact that I can consume the data, model it, organize it, relate it, and then build a multidimensional model off of it with Power Pivot, you're going to handle, I think, 85 to 90% of the requirements for most departmental level organizations.
Right. Excellent answer on that. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Victoria?
You know, I'd probably ask for most of the audience out there, if anybody has, you know, most organizations obviously have data quality issues these days, and what has been their tactics to actually tackle those data quality issues. Ira's got the components here that he's been able to provide to the audience as an answer to some of the data quality issues out there. But if there's other methods that people have discovered or implemented themselves, what are those methods? Has the audience had anything else out there they'd like to add that they find of value?
Very good question there.
Like the multi-country and the localization issues, those are key, obviously.
Yeah. Any thoughts, anyone?
And if on that, obviously, if no one wants to speak up, you know, send an email Ira's way, but always looking for new ideas on ways to improve the components, or just, you know, obviously thoughts of where they feel that they've got a little bit more of a grasp on the data quality or the area of data quality. Obviously, we're always looking to expand.
Right, and the last thing I'd add for folks is if they're not SSIS literate, I have all of these profiling capabilities documented as SQL procedures. I will be presenting them at Kalamazoo, People Saturday, Julie, I think you mentioned that. And if folks have a requirement, maybe something that's not specific to SSIS, hesitate to send me an email.
Okay, so we have a comment here from John Wiley. He said that we haven't done any BI as yet as a company. Our problems with data quality have been dealt with on a manual repair basis, but obviously this needs to change. So that's an interesting thought there as well. And another thing that I'd like to comment is a while back I was asked where does the data profiling or data quality sit when you design data warehouse? Is it something that you do up front, first thing that you do? And if you have to combine, additional data sources from different areas, do you look at the model first, or do you look at the quality first? So I'd like to see or hear what your thoughts on that, Ira and Victoria.
Well, we have, Victoria and I have worked, we have a methodology called metric decomposition, and the simple answer to the question, Julia, is they have to happen at the same time, and they feed each other. One of the things I promote a lot is the concept of building a metadata mart, which means taking these profiling queries that are out there, or taking the components that I've created, and immediately building a metadata mart, so that the more profiling you can have done before you start the requirements, the better. Because as you look at it, and as most of these projects are very agile, right? I want to be able to be in a room talking to clients, and I'm going to end up having to talk to both clients, IT folks, and a diverse community. In many cases, they each have a different opinion or a different, idea. There's the analogy out there, the allegory of the cave, perception is reality, is one of our most critical encumbrances in data warehousing. So if we have the data profiling available, and we're trying to talk to a client about a particular relationship they want, or whether or not we're going to be able to implement a business rule, if we can real time be able to say, well, we can't really do that because 50% of your zip codes are not populated, and we're going to have to do this other step first, it becomes critical in you managing those expectations. Secondly, and it kind of cascades, if you begin to create a data profiling repository or a metadata mart, and you're also creating and tracking your business processes, you can actually, in some cases, begin to marry those up and have some real ability to do some impact analysis. What is it going to take for me? If you look at some of the concepts out there by, say, Larissa Moss on extreme scoping and handling agile in a BI world, she would point out that the profiling becomes critical in you being able to understand, manage, and begin to change through your sprints what are our priorities. Secondly, in terms of data warehousing, the minute you get started and the minute you get through your first few sprints, if you've had any success in implementing the Microsoft stack in particular, your requirements, your prioritizations are going to change, because those users are going to see data they didn't understand. The more you have the profiling available and you expose that to the users, the better off you're going to be in understanding exactly what it's going to take to get done. And that might be a bit of a long-winded answer. Sorry.
That's okay. Is there anything you'd like to add, Victoria?
Actually, Ira pretty much tackled it all, but obviously, in my experiences when it comes to the ETL process, whether it's a one-off or whether it's something that you are continually doing to run feeds for a client every month, the data profiling definitely does add value to not only the organization but to the organization's clients. With a recent healthcare company, taking the data quality components and actually offering that as an additional service to their clients that are sending them feeds, of whether it's members or whatever is consisting of your client base. Providers, things like that. When you can provide that as an extra resource to your clients as well as an organization, there's a lot of value added to clients that would obviously like to stay with you due to that. Okay, you can say, all right, we'll take in your data, we can cleanse it when we get it, and then when it goes into our database, when we're running analytics, reporting, anything for you, it's going to be off of a clean data set.
Right, yeah. Let's see here if we have any other questions. Yeah, it's quite interesting because I just want to add a couple of things there where I've implemented a few data warehouse projects now, and most of the time the longest part or the most challenging part is always the data quality, because it uncovers so many I guess flaws in either the existing system or the application front end area. So it's any tools that can help with data quality or data governance, it's definitely a great help to data warehouse projects.
Absolutely. And as I said, there's some examples we have, and we can save for a later time, Julia, where we can take Julia. That's my granddaughter's name. Sorry, Julie. Where we can take and actually demonstrate the pretty easy process of building up some dashboards and tracking capabilities that you can begin to build right into your project planning. So that as you're going through and discovering that, gee, I've got this problem or that problem, you're better able to adapt and manage and help set management expectations as opposed to being constantly in reactive mode.
Right. Okay. So if you're interested in looking into that, do we contact you, or what's the best way to find out more about this this dashboard information?
Well, definitely. I realize that I'm horrible at making sure I get everything prepared, but our contact information is here, which we'll get out here. It's Whiteside, my just simple stuff. Whiteside at MSN. I've got a blog. Ira Warren Whiteside with this information on it and source code, and we've got also, I'd add one more in here. We have another website, Lineage.com, which also has got our contact information, and please feel free, anybody, to send us an email, contact us in any way you can, and we'll definitely get right back to you. And it isn't about, in this case, to me, I speak a lot. I've spoken at almost most of the SQL Saturdays in the United States, a lot of miles, and so I really follow this a lot. I have a great interest. I can provide you mostly and very quickly a lot of this information and source, and will gladly help anybody implement it who's interested. No problem.
All right, excellent, Sarah and Victoria. Thank you so much for speaking at Past VR Virtual Chapter, which is actually coming up to the hour. So what I might just do now is